Good morning, everyone. I'm Rebecca Vickers, and on behalf of the Florida Alcohol and Drug Abuse Association, welcome to today's webinar. This webinar is being made available through a collaboration of the Florida Department of Children and Families, Office of Substance Abuse and Mental Health, and the Florida Alcohol and Drug Abuse Association. Please note that as an attendee, you are in listen-only mode and will only be able to view your name. If you have questions, please send them to the presenter and me, the host, by using the chat panel. The button to open the panel is located in the lower right side of your monitor. Please use the chat panel to send any questions you may have as you think of them. The presenter will address questions as time permits. Our audio is broadcast through the internet to your computer. If you experience poor computer audio, there are a few options to try on screen right now, and these options are posted in the chat panel. If you continue to experience poor audio through your computer, try rejoining the webinar and use the I will call in telephone option. You must be connected to the audio of this presentation and view it on screen as well to receive a certificate of attendance. The recording and materials used in today's presentation will be available on FADA's website within 30 business days. To access the recording and PowerPoint, go to www.fada.org, then to our Resource Center, and then to our training library. FADA produces many webinars and workshops through the support of the Florida Department of Children and Families. To help participants track credits earned through attendance, we host an online community that provides a personalized digital journal where participants can maintain statements of credits for webinars and workshops taken through the Florida Alcohol and Drug Abuse Association. At the end of today's webinar, the web browser will direct everyone to an evaluation form on FADA's website. You will first need to register or sign into your account to complete the evaluation. Information you provide FADA as a part of registration remains confidential. Statements of credit will be posted 30 business days after the evaluation closes. For persons completing the evaluation and attending the full webinar, completing the evaluation is necessary to receive CE credits or to access your statement of credit. Please note that the evaluation will close midnight, Monday, November 7th. Up to 2 continuing education credits are available for participating in today's webinar for persons licensed through the Board of Nursing, the Board of Clinical Social Work, Marriage and Family Therapy, Mental Health Counseling, and for persons credentialed through the Florida Certification Board. If you are a licensed healthcare practitioner, be sure you included your license numbers for reporting to CE Broker when you registered for this webinar. If you are certified with the Florida Certification Board or licensed outside of the state of Florida, you do not need to provide your certification number when you register. Please note that WebEx monitors arrivals and departures of attendees and provides a report upon completion of the event. We are not permitted to provide a certificate of attendance if you do not attend the entire webinar, and we are not permitted to provide partial CE credit. Ashley Gonsler leads the Specialty Coordinated Care Team comprised of clinicians, prescribers, peer mentors, education, and employment specialists who collaborate to support transition-age youth at Threshold's Emerging Adults Division in Chicago, Illinois. In this role, she engages in preventative work and crisis intervention using a strength-based approach to help youth, young adults, and their families identify tangible ways to break generational cycles and begin to create sustainable, healthy, and adaptive patterns. A graduate of Michigan State University, Ashley is committed to identifying and providing preventative treatment to individuals most at risk of developing serious mental illness and substance use disorders. And now I'd like to welcome our presenter, Ashley. I'll turn the presentation over to you.
Thanks so much, Rebecca. So glad to be here. Thank you to FADA and Florida Department of Children and Families for having me. I always enjoy being able to do these webinars and connect with you all and just sharing my own experience as a way to be helpful and provide things that have worked well for me or maybe haven't worked so well for me. So nice to be with you all today, even though most of you are probably in Florida right now and enjoying warmer weather. It's about 60 degrees here in Chicago, and most people are happy with that because that feels warm for this time of the year. So perspective's everything. So yes, Rebecca talked about my experience working with first episode psychosis, and recently I transitioned into a new role within the hospital system. It's a safety net hospital where they provide outpatient behavioral health services to individuals referred by themselves, physicians, maybe even family members or friends. But in my experience, both working with first episode psychosis work and in this new role that I'm in right now, I've always found myself drawn back to working with this emerging adult population. We'll get into like what exactly that means in a little bit, but to give you some context, currently on my caseload, the youngest person I see is 17 years old. The oldest person I see is 71. So there's a wide range of people I work with, but I more so gravitate towards this emerging adult age because I find it really fascinating work to do. And in my experience working with first episode psychosis, which individuals who have recently experienced a first episode of psychosis, also within an age group that's like youth and young adults, I've learned a lot as far as like how to engage or approach treatment with them. Um, and by learning a lot, I don't mean I just have a lot of things that just went really, really well. It also comes with, I've had some stumbling blocks or things that have really humbled me and made me realize, okay, these approaches don't work for everyone. And I need to be creative and curious in order to be available for people that I provide services for. And so I hope that in our work together today that I'm able to share some of those stumbling blocks, share some of those successes, and create some space for us to think about how to best do preventative work and engagement work with this emerging adult population. So before I read the objectives for today, I want each of you to think about your why. Why for today? Why are you here? What made you sign up for this webinar? Is it a topic you're particularly interested in? Is it something that maybe got you out of work for a couple hours and you're like, hey, let's learn about this. This sounds great. What is your why of why you're here today? If you're comfortable too, feel free to write in the chat box. Again, you won't see other people's responses in the chat box, but I'll see them. And that can be a good way for us to build space of feeling connected despite being virtual. So go ahead and think about your why for today. Put it in the chat, think about it in your head, think about what brought you to not only sign up for the training, but to show up today. What are you hoping to gain out of being here? What is it that is your intention so that we can absorb information in a way where we're doing it strategically and also just tuning in with ourselves. So for the learning objectives today, the first one will be defining what that emerging adult population is like, also with college students as well, and to identify values of this group. Next, we're going to review the current strategies for substance use prevention and explore their efficacy. So I'll have lots of different examples there, things of when I was in school too, what they used in order to create that sort of like resource space to provide education and information for college students like myself back then. And then the final objective here is to identify specific approaches and messaging for substance use prevention. So this is more of what can I take away from today and apply, and or these are things I'm already doing really well, and like having that reinforcement of knowing that, okay, like I am doing some things right. Let me build off of that. Thanks so much for people who are responding in the chat. We've got April saying she wants to learn more about the adult population, what the population is like for this group, exploring perspectives of the topic. We got someone else who's passionate about this age group as well. It's when people usually start to express their independence. Absolutely, absolutely. That's why I enjoy this group as well. All right, so let's start with a quote. Overall, then, the years of emerging adulthood are characterized by a high degree of demographic diversity and instability, reflecting the emphasis on change and exploration. So, keeping this in mind about it being a time for change and exploration, and inherently that can be destabilizing for people because you're creating new norms and discovering parts of yourself that maybe there wasn't space for previously. Let's dive into defining what is emerging adulthood, why it matters in regards to prevention attempts, and what we can do to intentionally intervene to make a lasting impact. All right, so defining emerging adults. Roughly age group is 18 to 25. There's an asterisk there because this is only a rough indicator of the transition to emerging adulthood. So 18 seems to be a good age marker for the end of adolescence and the beginning of emerging adulthood. Because 18, there's a lot more you can do, and developmentally you're at a different space, right? Um, but because it's the age where most young people finish that secondary schooling, some leave their parents' home, reach the legal age of adulthood status in a variety of respects. But the 25 is where some people might have slightly varying degrees on like where this emerging adulthood age range stops, because it's not a universal period, but a period that exists mostly in cultures that postpone the entry into adult roles and responsibilities until well past the late teens. So, this is likely to be found in countries that are highly industrialized or post industrial. Such countries require a high level of education and training for entry into the information based professions that are their most prestigious and lucrative. So many of their young people remain in school into their early 20s and mid 20s. Marriage and parenthood are typically postponed until well after schooling has ended, which allows for a period of exploration of various relationships before marriage and for exploration of various jobs before taking on the responsibility of supporting a child financially. Um, Establishment of more mature interpersonal and intimate relationships is also part of this emerging adulthood period. Transition to new quote unquote adult type roles. We've got development of new social networks and increased choices, opportunities, and independence. All right, now Rebecca's going to help me out here for a poll question. So please respond to this. Which of the following is a main component of identity exploration for emerging adults? A, love, B, work, C, worldview, or D, all of the above? Got about a minute to respond to this. So go ahead and take a second and respond to this poll question just to kind of get a sense of where you all are thinking about these components, which ones might fall into this category of what is explored during emerging adulthood. Okay, a couple more seconds. Please respond to the poll question. About which of these do you think is a main component of identity exploration for emerging adults? All right, so it looks like a majority of people who participated responded with D, all of the above. And not to get ahead of myself, but yes, that is correct. all three of these do apply as part of the formation of identity for emerging adults. So identity formation involves trying out various life possibilities and gradually moving towards making enduring decisions. In all three of these areas, this process begins in adolescence, but takes place mainly in emerging adulthood. So let's start with the first one, for love. For love, American adolescents typically begin dating around ages 12 to 14. Young people view these early years of dating as primarily recreational, providing companionship, the first experiences of romantic love, and sexual experimentation. Then, in emerging adulthood, love becomes more intimate and serious. It is less focused on recreation and more on exploring the potential for emotional and physical intimacy. For comparison, in adolescence, love tends to be tentative and transient, focused on the here and now, right? But when we get into emerging adulthood, there's where it tends to involve a deeper level of intimacy with a more identity purpose, such as what kind of a person do I wish to have as a partner through life? Next, we're going to talk about work. So, adolescents tend to view their jobs as a way to obtain money that will support an active leisure life, meaning like the focus would be more so on, like, hey, can I go to Subway? Or can I get some clothes or travel or concerts? More of those short term gratification sort of things. In emerging adulthood, work experiences start to become more focused on preparation for adult work roles, and they begin to consider how their work experiences may lay the foundation for jobs or careers in adulthood. So a good example is this is, what do I want to be able to put on my resume that might help me get the job that I want in the future, right? So this is also true for educational choices and experiences. So it's normal, and most people do it, but college students often change majors more than once, especially in their first 2 years. I have done that too, making a drastic shift from going into veterinary sciences to clinical social work, but that's a normal change to switch majors in college, especially in the first 2 years, as to try on possible occupational futures, maybe toss them out, maybe choose others, maybe go back to one, right? Other examples of exploration include graduate school, short-term volunteer jobs in programs such as AmeriCorps and the Peace Corps, and also study abroad too, which can expand personal experiences and aid in developing identity. I think that's also why some of those programs are so popular at that age, because you're seeking that sense of self and wanting to have experiences that help to either influence or reaffirm parts of us that we are looking to have validated or to have reinforced in some sort of way. The last one is worldview. So research backs that changes in worldviews happens in emerging adulthood and higher education. And higher education promotes explorations and reconsiderations of worldviews. There is also research specifically around religious beliefs that suggests that regardless of educational background, they consider it important during emerging adulthood to re-examine the beliefs they have learned in their families and to form a set of beliefs that is the product of their own independent reflections. All right, so why we're here today? Why focus on emerging adults and college students in regards to prevention attempts? So first off, I think someone also said this in the chat a little bit ago, but identity exploration can lead to more risk behaviors. So one of the motivations consistently found to be related to participation in a variety of types of risk behaviors is sensation seeking, which is the desire for novel and intense experiences. Of note, they typically are able to pursue these intense and novel experiences more freely than adolescents because they are less likely to be monitored by parents and less constrained by roles such as parenthood or marriage. Next, we want to focus on this population due to the increase in alcohol and substance availability on college campuses. So increased alcohol use and abuse, which can have long-term effects on both physical and psychological well-being and may have implications for the attainment of traditional adult roles. So if the use then becomes part of a longer standing disorder that we're now focusing our time, effort, and energy on, there might be missed opportunities to attain those adult roles that we're talking about are so important for this emerging adulthood period. Third on this list is acceptance of drinking on college campuses may lead to heavy drinking among students. So attending college may represent a special risk to emerging adults as increases in alcohol availability and acceptance of drinking on college campuses may lead to increase in heavy drinking among students. Of note, right, because this isn't just about college students, the non-student population of emerging adults also is an important target for preventative interventions, especially because people in this segment of the population may be less likely to mature out of heavy drinking patterns established during adolescence. Thus, the transition from high school to young adulthood appears to be an ideal developmental turning point during which to target interventions. Last on this list is optimistic bias, so may not see self as vulnerable to negative consequences. So optimism is an almost like universal trait among emerging adults. Because of their optimistic bias, many emerging adults do not see themselves as vulnerable to any negative consequences that might occur because of drinking, such as having an accident or becoming dependent on alcohol. Thus, emerging adults are more likely to take risks and to drink excessively, although risk-taking may not be the impetus for their drinking. In other words, the decision to drink is more influenced by the perceived benefits of drinking, such as positive expectations of effects of alcohol, than by the perceived risks. So some factors to consider. We've got gender, race and ethnicity, marital status, college employment, peer and family influences, individual temperament, and attitudes about drinking and substance use. So there's a multitude of factors, and this probably doesn't even cover close to all of the factors that we could list here. But given the time constraints of our training today and the specific objectives of this webinar and what that's based off of, I've decided to focus primarily on just a couple of these factors. So let's go ahead and dive into them. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start with college as one of the factors to consider. So some argue that college campus environments itself encourages heavy drinking. Alcohol use is present at most college social functions, and many students view college as a place to drink excessively. Students experience greater exposure to drinking and encounter higher levels of peer drinking and positive attitudes toward alcohol as they transition from high school to college. I think about it as in high school, even though there might be individuals experimenting with substance use and in particular drinking, it might be more hush hush and less kind of in your face, whereas in a lot of college campuses there might be things happening in front of like your face, like in front of different homes or apartment complexes or things like that. So it's more of a in your face, kind of hard to ignore. Okay, this leads greatly into the next one, which is peer influences. So to start, vulnerability to the influence of peers due to their need to make new friendships. Again, this is about social connections and networks, and this is so important during this time. So the second one is it may increase their drinking to facilitate these peer interactions. So people entering college or the workforce may be especially vulnerable to the influence of peers because of their need to make new friendships. They may increase their drinking to facilitate peer interactions. Peer influence is exerted directly, such as overt drink offers or urges to drink, and indirectly, such as modeling perceived social norms. Many college students may drink more because of their misperceptions about the norms of drinking on their campuses. This is going to come up a little bit later too, but about the idea of what are these norms that exist in places such as college campuses, and are individuals within this emerging adult population having misperceptions about these norms, right? And that's changing their behavior when in actuality, maybe that isn't the case. All right, so family influences is another one of those factors to consider. So during emerging adulthood, parental or caregiver monitoring decreases, and parents, therefore, have less influence on drinking patterns than do peers. So, nevertheless, young people's relationships with their parents continue to play a major protective role in development during the stage of the life cycle. Parental drinking patterns have been shown to affect drinking by offspring over the life course. Young people model their own behavior on their parents' pattern of consumption. So this could include quantity and frequency, situations and context of use, attitudes regarding use, and use expectancies. The structure and environment of the family unit, as well as the parent-child relationship attributes. So this includes parenting style, attachment and bonding, nurturance, abuse or neglect, conflict, discipline, and monitoring have been found to correlate with adolescent alcohol use. And the last of the factors to consider that I picked out for today's webinar is the attitudes about drinking and substance use. So drinking or using substances to regulate emotional distress, drinking or using substances to celebrate or for positive reasons, and expectancies about alcohol and its effects. The next, we're going to look at a video, which is an attempt by a fraternity at the University of California, Berkeley, to show messaging around safe party habits. So let's get into this. All right. What did you all think of that video? Feel free to respond in the chat box. Parts of the video that actually stood out to me when I decided to incorporate it into this training was the messaging, which using students as a way to kind of personalize the messaging and make it relatable. Um, Part of it's like really lighthearted, but informational. Like the talking about food and other components of partying, not just focused around drinking or using substances. So I also like about the messaging that it's like a harm reduction approach as opposed to messaging that is more like abstinence only, right? Because we think about this period of time is all about that exploration, right? And it could be, you create some instability with trying different things and trying to, figure out what do I like, what don't I like. And so I like that this approach is like very relatable and saying like, okay, there are parts about going to social gatherings or parties that I can do without having to engage in a way that I might perceive others may expect me to. We have some responses to what I asked about the video. Someone said they like the clever presentation. Another person said, I like how the focus is on socializing and having fun without over drinking. Absolutely. Someone else said always having other things available aside from alcohol, like food and water. Yeah, there was someone in there that talked about, I think, like mozzarella sticks or something like that. And I thought that was funny. Something that people could relate to, right? Like that sounds really great. Um, Another person said it makes it sound okay using them to say they party safe. Yep. Some might feel more comfortable knowing that they have choices and more likely to go. Yeah, being able to still have those social interactions with peers without feeling that pressure of, I have to do something, I have to engage in not just drinking, but maybe even over drinking, right? This kind of takes that off the table, saying you can go there. You could be like that one person said, like the beer pong champ without even drinking. Um, Someone else put in the chat that they like the messaging about remembering your friends and kind of looking out for each other. Another person said, I like that it promotes moderation and is not completely restrictive. Completely restricting a behavior is going to create a larger desire to overindulge. There's a responsible way to have a cocktail or two. Absolutely. Definitely more of the middle ground as opposed to don't do it at all. It's like, how can we meet in the middle, knowing that there's a high likelihood of experimentation that'll happen with this age group. The last one, someone said choice is featured, which is great. Personal as well as food and other things to do and dance more. Very good. Thanks for your responses. That helps when doing a webinar, we're not able to see each other, but just to know we're connected and can experience the webinar together. So I really appreciate responses in the chat box. We're going to go to another quote. So as we have seen, most young people in this age period would disagree that they have reached adulthood. They see themselves as gradually making their way into adulthood. So emerging adulthood seems a better term for their subjective experience. More generally, the term emerging captures the dynamic, changeable, fluid quality of the period. So again, thinking about emerging adulthood, what's one experience, challenge, or defining feature of your own experience that continues to define you today? So again, other participants can't see your responses, but if you feel comfortable, please share in the chat box what stands out to you as you look back onto the period of emerging adulthood, or if you're in the stage currently, what's a recent challenge that you've experienced? So think about an experience, a challenge, or defining feature of emerging adulthood. And it could be something that also continues to define you to this day. As you all respond to that in the chat box, I'll read things as they come up, but we're going to move forward to the next objective of this webinar, which is to review current strategies for substance use prevention and to explore their efficacy. So time to share like my own experience, right, of attending college at Michigan State University. So given that most of you are probably tuning in from Florida or maybe from there originally, I'll give some context. So Michigan State is known for many things, including the nation's premier land-grant university, one of the top research universities, like in the world, known for their programs for veterinary school, which is, what brought me there initially, elementary and secondary education, nuclear physics. MSU is known for their athletics. The list goes on and on. Outside of those accolades, the running joke in the state of Michigan is that Michigan State is known as the drinking school, right? So don't worry, the story is purposeful. It's not me just giving a background on Michigan or trying to convince you all that the winters here really aren't that bad, because in Michigan and Chicago, they are really bad. So when I moved into the dorms my freshman year at Michigan State, I was informed of these well sought after shirts, right? I would see people wearing them around campus, and I was very intrigued. I was like, okay, first off, what college student doesn't like a free item, and especially a shirt that you could wear to the gym or just hanging out in the dorms, right? So when I saw this shirt, which mind you, it had ducks on it, right? So kind of strange, like why are there shirts that everyone's wearing with ducks on them, and I can never figure out where to find these. So I was on the hunt to obtain one on my own, right? I'm like, different people have it. There's some with different colors. Like, I'm intrigued. I heard they're free. I got to figure out my strategy for getting these because I want one. As fate would have it, when I was on my way back to my dorm from working in the dining hall, I stumbled across an event where they were handing out these shirts, and they were bright pink ones, which not really my color, but hey, it's the shirt. I happened to be coming back from work and I saw it and I was like, of course I'm gonna try to go and get one of those shirts. So I was thrilled, right? It's like, yes, I'm getting the shirt. Awesome. It was my go-to shirt that I could wear for working out or just lounging. So now circling back to today, right? And being in this webinar, the messaging on these shirts is what's important and what stands out to me when we're talking about prevention messaging for emerging adults and college students. These shirts provided a fun, inviting way to promote a better understanding of alcohol use by the Michigan State University student population and to challenge those prevailing myths and misperceptions which may lead to higher risk consumptions. So of course, I'm going to share with you all some examples of these. Okay. So as you can see in these images, the ducks provide education in a transparent, approachable, and informal manner. It's aesthetically pleasing images, catchy sayings like using puns, which I absolutely love. And there's a clear statistic which provides bite-sized information that helps reflect social norms in a harm reduction approach. So when I think of like bite-sized bits of information, if we think about something new, right? Like as a kid, maybe when we're sitting at the table and we're told we have to eat our vegetables, right? If the parent or caregiver trying to get us to eat our vegetables is like, here's a whole plate full of all these different veggies. I want you to eat them all. We're probably going to be like, no, don't know what that is. Don't want anything to do with it. Bring on the good stuff like the mashed potatoes or chicken, whatever it is. But if we're able to provide a small bite-sized piece just to try it, see what it tastes like without any expectations of, you have to finish this entire plate or you have to try multiple things at once, it's gonna be a higher likelihood that we're willing to take that small bite just to say, okay, that wasn't too bad, or okay, that was something that was manageable. And I think that this approach does that very well. So, for example, the top one, slam duck, it's tournament time. So 92% of MSU students approve of, quote, getting the assist and cutting off a friend before they have too much to drink. Below that, keeping count is instrumental. So 9 out of 10 MSU students consume 0 to 4 drinks when they party. So bite-sized information that helps to get the messaging across, but in a more palatable way. So the program that created these ducks, the Alcohol and Other Drugs program, they state that they're committed to reducing the negative impact associated with substance use while cultivating an environment in which MSU students can flourish personally, civically, and academically. The services are guided by a belief that students are capable of making wise, well-informed decisions about alcohol and drugs when provided the information, education, and support necessary to do so. So it's not just about spoon feeding fears or all the potential like negative consequences that could happen. It's also, here are some supports, here's some information, here are some things you can take into account when you're making that decision of what to do or how much to do. So again, back to the messaging about not just being alcohol based. The one up top, share your quackers, like crackers. So being able to eat before or while drinking can help limit the negative effects of alcohol. The other one is showing about calling to get support and services if a friend has passed out from drinking. And then the next one, I think, is the one I did. Yes, because there was recently Halloween. I found some that are specifically focused on that, right? Because that's like, that can be a big sort of time of year, right? In the early fall season, that people might engage in more of these behaviors. So I did some specifically to represent Halloween because first off, I think they're adorable. And second of all, I think it's like important to also target those periods of time when we know that people are more likely to engage in these behaviors. And a fun fact about these, like the duck campaign, it was initially developed by Michigan State University students in the Communication Arts and Sciences program, and currently utilizes a group of student volunteers, which are called the Quack Pack, to inform the development of new campaign messages and strategies, assist with the distribution of campaign materials on and off campus, and provide staffing for campaign events. As part of the campaign, health promotion and the Residence Hall Association co-sponsors in-hall interactive educational programs, including Know Your Solo and Duck Days, which is actually one of the events that I got that bright pink duck shirt from. So great. I'm seeing that people have responded in the chat box about some of their own experiences, like defining moments of emerging adulthood. And I appreciate that. Some of them have personal information, so I won't read it fully out loud, like all the details, but there are components in here about making a big move to a state or seeing someone that they care about, a friend, use substances and have a mental health episode, right? Moving from one culture to another, and different relationship dynamics within their emerging adulthood. So Thank you for sharing that. Again, I appreciate the collaboration because otherwise I feel like I'm just talking to the screen, and I love to hear from people on the other side of this webinar, people who are listening and tuning in. So thank you for that. Okay, so another one of the current strategies or things being used included a text messaging program to promote college student health and wellness. So students demonstrated engagement with these messages throughout the semester, as evidenced by replies to text back keywords and clicking on the website links embedded within these messages that were sent to students. Messages included different categories, including about sleep, stress management, and hydration. Those were the ones considered most relevant. And in this programming, a majority of participants, I think it was 60, 61, 65, I think it's 61 actually, percent reported increased awareness regarding their health. So again, using text messaging as a form of an intervention, right? To provide bite-sized information, and also included health topics, right, that are going to be relevant to students. We're talking about stress management, sleep schedule, staying hydrated, which is something I wish I focused more on just in general with drinking water more, or sent to students directly, and they were able to decipher the level of engagement based on getting a text message and saying, having them respond back to confirm they received it or read it, or if they clicked on any of the resource links provided. So I like that because instead of just feeling like, oh, people are going to come down to the health center just to get a brochure or get some information, the text messaging is a really direct stream of information and something that someone can look at now or save for later or reflect on later when they're like, oh yeah, what was that thing that they said about hydration and how that may help with something that's relevant to me, like maybe sustainability with how long I can study or that sort of thing. So that's one of the approaches that's also been used. Next is this intervention scale. So when I was looking at resources for this webinar, I came across a comprehensive resource for students at the University of California, Berkeley. So this is also where that one video came from. And there's another one from them that we'll look at in a little while. But the site for the students of UC Berkeley was titled Risk Management and Harm Reduction. And there were resources in many formats, such as a party safe toolkit for party goers and party throwers, with graphics such as when to intervene and the varying warning signs. So here you'll see that they have different signs of intoxication and then what the call to action would be, right? So starting from the bottom of chill, aware, just support them. And then it gets to all the way to if someone is showing different signs of cold skin or not being responsive or slow breathing, what you can do in order to provide them help in that situation. In this website, in this resource packet, there's also emergency alcohol intervention, which includes how to put someone in the recovery position to ensure that their airway isn't blocked, and what to communicate to 911 or paramedics. So again, when we're thinking about how do we support young people or emerging adult population in being informed while they're making these decisions that lead to more self-discovery, if we're able to provide some context as to here are some things you look for, here's how you can respond if there are concerns about someone when they are drinking. Like, I just like how, I don't know, just how easy to access and gather information in a way where they could help potentially save someone's life in a situation. So um, I'm glad to hear. It looks like someone is saying that they like the posters and they seem to be a great tool. Really happy to provide these resources because I think they are really important. Um, the next slide, um, also along with risk management and harm reduction, that was part of this resource website, talks about opioid overdose and just 5 steps of how to respond to it. So shout and shake, call 911, give naloxone, perform rescue breathing and or chest compressions, and then ask, is it working? On the bottom, you'll see the recovery position laid out and signs of opioid overdose. So I imagine right now this looks kind of small, but like you'll have access to the PDF of the PowerPoint, and also in the resource slide, I linked this website. So it's really easy to get this information and utilize it or get inspired by it too. So feel free to take a look at that as well after the presentation. Okay, and then the last example from this website that I have is, I don't know if you guys were paying attention, where in the video it says like, the one person said, do you, right? So being able to make your own choices and your own experiences. So this is just like another, it kind of looks like a comic book sort of approach way of ways to decide, like on the left, if I am drinking tonight, what are some things that I can do, like setting a plan and sticking to a limit, pace and space your drinks, knowing the policies and laws. So this is really about being informed, making decisions in a way where it's not like I'm just winging it. It's like thinking about how can I do this in a way that is going to be safe and enjoyable for me. And on the right side, this is if I'm not drinking tonight, just know not everyone drinks. Know you're normal. Play and relax alcohol free. So maybe even finding some strategies of what would I do at a party if I'm not drinking? Can I dance? Can I bring food? What are my options? So again, just like a nice way to present information that helps to normalize different choices and options that young people have in these scenarios. Okay, next Rebecca's going to help me out with playing this video, again from UC Berkeley. This is called I Party Safe, and here's how I do it. Let's take a watch. All right. So because you all did such a great job of providing some feedback about the video and like what stood out to you, what are some things that stood out about that last video could compare to the one we watched initially, right? This one's a little bit longer and it gives more tidbits of information and some of the ones that I referenced in the imaging of the slides. But write in the chat box what stands out to you all from that video. And I think, Rebecca, I think it actually went back to the beginning for the PowerPoint. So if you could assist and get me back to.
Oh, yes. Let me get that for you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Let me give you back the presenter. There you go. Sorry about that, Ashley.
No worries. Thanks. So yeah, what stood out about this video? The I Party Safe and Here's How I Do It, whether in the messaging or information provided. We have Marianne who said precise emergency information. I thought that was really great. And for UC students, they were saying that they have a responsible bystander policy. So even if you're there supporting a friend to get like help that they need and you're intoxicated, like you won't be punished for that, which I think is important to help say, I can stay with my friend, make sure they have the materials that they need to get to the hospital or wherever they're going to get that support without running the risk of feeling like I'm putting myself in jeopardy. I think that's really important when we talk about being that friend to someone else in those moments. We want to like minimize that risk for the person trying to support someone who needs those interventions. Let's see, someone else said it normalizes for young adults and teaches them how to help. Absolutely. Someone else said they like from the video the idea of all of them caring for each other. Definitely. It definitely felt like more of a community in that video. And when they practice putting the person into the emergency position to make them safe, just like being there for each other and helping. Someone else said more specific steps to help your friends in certain situations. Another person said they like how they speak on the video, saying they are to party safe. Someone else likes that they're solution focused and that it presents realistic scenarios for college students. Absolutely. Okay, so another approach utilized is mobile intervention to address risky substance use. So for this one, this programming, they recruited youth who endorsed binge drinking or recreational cannabis use in the last month. They provided just-in-time adaptive interventions, soothing background design, including an aquarium image, and concerns about privacy. So in this, it's called Advances in Mobile Health. It provided accessible and cost-effective interventions, which offered novel opportunities for delivering personalized and adaptive interventions in the real world. So a form of personalized medicine, of just-in-time adaptive interventions, operationalize the use of real-time data collection in individualizing content and delivery of intervention strategies. So the just-in-time adaptive interventions have been developed and evaluated for a wide range of behavioral health issues. Behavioral health issues, including cardiovascular disease, diabetes, mental health conditions, and smoke cessation. So health approaches are lacking in selective prevention of substance use, such as risky use of alcohol or cannabis, among youth during the critical period when substance use is initiated and reaches peak prevalence. So adequate engagement with mHealth apps is necessary for success. However, low engagement and attribution is common, including in those apps focusing on substance use. This concern was particularly salient for not in treatment samples of adolescents and emerging adults who may not view their substance use as problematic, meaning like they have the lower readiness to change. Thus, engagement in mHealth tools for those not seeking behavior change is a unique challenge. Although passive data collection is rapidly advancing, self-reporting remains to be a staple for tailoring intervention delivery for substance use, as passive detection of key psychological mechanisms such as motives for use is not possible. So with this approach, pros and cons for that. When a young person was engaged in using these mHealth apps, they had concerns about privacy. So example, if they're giving information about when they're using or how much, where's this information going? Who's collecting it? Is someone I know going to find out about what I am reporting, right? So all of those really are valid concerns that they have. But there were things that the emerging adults did like about it. And with the app, that background was like an aquarium background. So it's very soothing and just very, I must think of that as like, it's like an alternative approach, right? It's not cold and it's not just like boring. Like they tried to make it in a way so that it would be enticing for young people to engage with. Another, let me see. Yes, another programming as part of a prevention efforts focused on college students. So this took place in 2014 with the Minnesota Department of Human Services Behavioral Health Division, formerly the Alcohol and Drug Abuse Division. They received a Strategic Prevention Framework Partnership for Success grant from SAMHSA. In Minnesota's Partnership for Success grant was aimed at assessing and addressing underage alcohol use and young adult marijuana use. So some of the main factors of this was Partnerships for Success grant covered 7 college campuses in Minnesota. The focus was on specific student groups and collaborated with campus partners. So in the next slide, we're going to go ahead and talk about some of the lessons learned from that like that grant. What were some of the takeaways from it? So here we go. So to start, additional research and expertise is needed to support schools in implementing evidence-based and culturally sensitive strategies. So Partnerships for Success coordinators struggled to find evidence-based practices for prevention on college campuses, specifically for marijuana use. In addition, research on implementing strategies with cultural sensitivity is limited. Best practices are often informed by studies done with white middle-class college students. Additional adaptation and evaluation is needed to determine whether those practices work for different populations. Next is recognizing that individual experiences are different and nuanced. So though research may indicate that certain populations are at high risk for substance use, each person's lived experience is unique. For example, while athletes in general engage in higher risk drinking, the research indicates drinking rates are highest in sports that traditionally attract more white athletes, such as hockey and lacrosse. Okay, the third bullet point is focusing on um, the lesson learned about buy-in from campus partners being critical. So the PFS coordinators who were able to get support and buy-in from athletic departments and multicultural offices were more successful at reaching diverse student groups. In addition, support from higher levels of administration is critical to the success of overall prevention efforts. So I think that makes a lot of sense, right? You can't be doing something sort of just like in isolation within the context of a college campus without having those underlying supports, right? If we're trying to identify what they say, lacrosse and hockey athletes and their drinking patterns, if we don't have that connection or collaboration with the athletic department, that might not be so well received, right? And we want to be sure, especially in these grants, like part of that is trying something, figuring out, does this work? Does it not work? And if it doesn't work, what are the lessons we learned that we can pass along to other people so that they have kind of like they can learn from our mistakes. Okay, so the next one is focusing on mental health and stressors. So focusing on the substance use behaviors of particular student groups risk marginalizing students of certain races or sexual orientations. Instead, if you focus on stressors related to discrimination and marginalization and support students of all cultures to ensure they have what they need physically and mentally to be successful at school. Working with younger students, like post-secondary enrollment option students, can help students gain the skills to manage stress before they become full-time college students and experience the stressors associated with transitions to college. So again, with the emerging adulthood population, in the midst of transitions, it's going to bring a variety of experiences, right? But I think part of that is trying to make sense and normalize like what's going on, what are the things happening, and how do I kind of navigate these difficult transitional periods. Um, Kind of reflecting back about some of your responses in the chat about what were defining moments during emerging adulthood. And I think um, that's something that also stands out to me is like when I had that transition period of, living at home for all my life and going through high school and kind of being at the top of like, your senior class and then you're graduating and then the next steps, you're kind of bumped back down to the bottom and being a first year, right? And trying to figure out, okay, wait, this is very different than what I'm used to. I'm in a different space. I don't have the same friends, or at least not the same access to them as I did before, right? It's like those core components being gone and trying to figure out like what is my new sense like of normal? Like how do I get that support or structured or security that I need during this transition period when there's so many different things happening like in tandem with each other. And I think too, even with the focus here being on prevention efforts with substance use, it's also about how do we bring about awareness onto these key transitional periods and what sort of things they can bring up. Because when we talk about it feeling like really unstable or a lot of exploration and identity work, like kind of in the sense you're going from, hey, I'm in high school, I'm a senior, like I'm at the top of my game, I have my friend group, I have my plans, I have all of these things, and then we go into college and it's like, wait, I don't have any of those things anymore, and I'm not sure what to do about it. How do I kind of find a way to soothe that sense of uncertainty or insecurity in the moment I'm in right now. So I think that that's also like a key element here when we're talking about focus on stressors and mental health, thinking about that. And that's why I also asked you all to kind of think about what's a defining moment in your emerging adulthood, or if you're in it right now, because those are the things that help us to be able to connect with and be more relatable with individuals we might be providing services for, or trying to create like more prevention messaging. We want to be able to tap in to our own experiences, not to just like unnecessarily self disclose, but so that we get that messaging instead of having the approach of you need to not do something, or like you can't try these things while you're in college or in emerging adulthood. We want to connect to like our own stuff and say, oh, I can connect with what it was like to be in that situation, because when I was in it, that was scary, or it was really unsettling. And here's how I thought about things. Here's how I viewed the world. And here's how I started to form my identity. Because without that, kind of just feels like we're throwing information at people, and especially with like the emerging adult population. First off, I don't think anyone, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think anyone really likes being told what to do. But especially during this time where there's that focus on having that sense of autonomy. So being respected by others, respecting yourself and your decision making. I think that's also like really important for us to be mindful that we're not just throwing information, but we're trying to connect with this experience and then provide different like tidbits of information so that people can make informed decisions in a way where we're minimizing the likelihood of like risk, because they have information, and if they choose to engage in certain behaviors, they can know how to respond in an emergency or how to help a friend in that moment too. We have a comment in the chat box, just kind of noting that they're glad I pointed out the mental health and stressors connection, especially with substance use and young people. These two factors are incredibly important and can often be the tipping point that pushes someone to a relapse. Yeah, thank you for your insight there. I feel like stressors and mental health I could talk about all day, but there are some more lessons learned from this grant program, so I shall continue on. So vetting messages and visuals with diverse students and stakeholders. So it's important that health messages visually represent a wide variety of students. So messages and visuals should be vetted with a variety of stakeholders to ensure messages don't inadvertently shame a population. So using several different images with a prevention message may also help ensure that no one population group is singled out. High-risk groups should not be labeled as high-risk users, as that can increase stigma and cause further harm. So what I like about this is it's not just about creating messaging or visuals that one might think could be helpful for a specific population, but actually like integrating the students and stakeholders into that process to get a sense of how it might feel when they see a certain messaging or visuals around campus about this programming. So we don't want to single certain population groups out. Like, for example, when there was talk about the hockey or lacrosse team, we don't want to just put a message out about not like minimizing binge drinking for those two sports teams, because first off, no one likes to be called out like that, and second of all, it can increase stigma, right? So if someone saw someone from one of those teams drinking, they might poke fun at that or mention seeing that visual or the messaging. And then that person might be less likely to seek out information or support if needed. So we want to be mindful that, again, we're not just shoving information at young people and saying, take this, take that, but also we're getting their input. And I think that's why I also really like the duck campaign, not just because of the free t-shirts, but because it is run by students themselves, and it's aimed at kind of challenging those myths or preconceived notions about social norms. So for things to land better, we have to connect with that population. And it really helps to do that by incorporating the populations we're trying to support in that decision making, and in making sure that we're spending all this time, funding, and energy in trying to do prevention efforts, if we don't even talk to the people, like AKA the students or emerging adults, as part of that process, we're really doing a disservice to our work and to the population, because we're just throwing things out there and hoping it lands, as opposed to kind of knowing the general area to aim our focus so that people feel like they're heard and respected. And then you get that information of what sorts of things would be important for them to know. What are they interested in learning about when it comes from like that harm reduction approach? So then the last one here is about conduct ongoing needs assessment. So collecting data on student substance use by various demographic characteristics is important for tracking trends, disparities, progress, and emergent needs. Data on some groups of college students can be limited in a given year, or 1 year of data can be an outlier. I think too, especially with the pandemic, that might also apply to. That could really change the data given from students and their use. So collecting data on an ongoing basis informs whether use rates are consistently high among certain student groups. So keeping the curiosity open and collecting data in order to compare from 1 year to another what the trends are, what that looks like. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and watch a brief video, just another way to put out some information about keeping an eye out for signs of mental health and substance use disorders. All right, so definitely a briefer video than the other ones I showed. But what I like about this one is it's something relatable. Like we all have that, maybe that person or a work or something where our phone will go off, either a phone call or I don't know about you all, but when I have a reminder to do something that maybe I don't particularly want to do, I'll snooze it until it goes away, and I'll be like, "Oh shoot, that's something I really should have attended to," right? And so listening to yourself for these signs, I think, is so important. And in order to empower young people to do that within this emerging adult population, we have to provide those resources in order to do that. And these resources have to be things that make sense to them. And so another thing I like about the video is just it being so relatable, of like there are some warning signs, right? Or these calls that alert us to something might be off, but we might write it off, or we might not have the energy to tend to it, right? And so we kind of just snooze and snooze and snooze. But then it gets to a point where we're like, oh, I can't really snooze that anymore. So it's important for emerging adults to feel empowered, not just to make decisions um, in help forming their identity, but to also like be empowered to know, hey, I feel like something's feeling off with me. Here's a way I can kind of get support or explore that, or here are some resources um, that might be available to me. All right, so another poll question, 50-50 chance of getting this right. So it's a true or false question. So go ahead and please respond to the poll. So true or false, substance use disorders are more than twice as likely to go left untreated than mental health disorders in young adults. So go ahead, take a minute to respond to this. Like I said, 50-50 shot of getting it right. And two, just to know there are people still listening, and yeah, just take a moment. It's the last poll question I have. So again, it's true or false, substance use disorders are more than twice as likely to go left untreated than mental health disorders in young adults. What do you all think? Please respond, and then we'll be able to talk about what the answer is and continue onward. Okay. So out of the people who participated, 42% had said true, and that is the correct answer. So looking at this graphic on the screen, so this is normalizing asking for help for young adults. This is information from SAMHSA, specifically around the young adult population. So 8.8 million young adults reported having a mental illness. 42% of those with mental illness went untreated, whereas 5.1 million young adults reported having a substance use disorder. And then 87% of those with substance use disorders went untreated. So entering into adulthood can be an emotional time, but sometimes the ups and downs can mean something more. It's important to remember that asking for help is a normal part of life, and you should never feel like you have to take on the world alone. So if you are concerned that you or someone in your life may be drinking too much, using drugs, or dealing with mental illness, there are resources available to help. Was anyone surprised by the answer to the polling question being true? Because in some ways, if we like dissect that a little bit, right? Let me go back to the actual question. Hold on. So substance use disorders are more than twice as likely to go left untreated than mental health disorders in young adults. Like thinking about the why we're here today, and this messaging, like the prevention messaging for emerging adults and college students, I think that this is so important because there are resources available, but if we're unaware of having some sort of issue with addiction or substance use, right? We might not have that kind of availability, like that recognition of like, oh, there's things to help because we're not aware of it, first off. Second off, I think that like lately there's been a greater push of normalizing getting mental health support. But I think with substance use, there's still so much stigma tied to it that even the notion of like trying to find information about what services are out there is a really daunting task. And I don't know if it's like this for you all in Florida or not, but here in Chicago, most places have long wait lists to get in to see a mental health therapist, right? So people who are identifying as having some sort of mental health condition or stressor, a thing that they want to go to therapy for, they take the they take that opportunity to call, which is not an easy call, right? To say, hey, I want to talk to someone because I'm struggling, give insurance information, just to be told, oh yeah, it's going to be a couple months before you're able to get seen. That's something that's really stressful. So if we think about the stigma tied to seeking out some like help or supportive services with substance use, it really makes it seem like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense why those disorders go left untreated for this population group. Um, it seems like, let me see, in the chat, since I know not everyone can see it, but someone was saying they're not at all surprised by the poll results. Sadly, many people still think that people who use drugs can just choose to stop without any kind of help. Yeah, it's like this kind of perspective of thinking it's just about willpower or just being able to just cut it off, right? It's like you're not trying hard enough, which is not the case. And I think that's something in these formative years that's so important to get that message across of that there are ways to provide support and intervention that can be helpful. Because when we're talking about identification or identity formation, when we talked about love, work, and worldview, like by creating these like preventative messaging opportunities and intervening now, we have the potential to help influence emerging adults' worldview in a positive way when it comes to seeking out support and services and being informed when they're making decisions that may just by nature be high risk, right? They may be risky behaviors, but if they're informed and they have that information to navigate, even when things are uncertain or stressful, we have such a big opportunity to help create these changes. And I think that's why it's so important. Um, Someone else said substance use is normalized and substance use disorders are stigmatized. Yeah, it's really upsetting, but you said that very well, Andreas. Like, it is very much stigmatized to have a substance use disorder, but yeah, when you think about how many activities involve use of substances or even at work, taking smoke breaks, things like that, that are so normalized, it's like, can we have it where we get to the point where seeking out support and normalizing having a condition, right? A substance use disorder doesn't have to be something that's stigmatized, but rather part of identifying something that's going on to which there are supports or services to help intervene or kind of facilitate change there. Someone else said it's hard for them to know how to even do it with emerging skills such as making these appointments. Yeah, I think it's so difficult to make that call of saying, I need help, I need support, not knowing what questions are going to be asked, right? Because that's also something people don't talk about is like when you make a call to sign up for therapy or some sort of like substance use support services, like what kind of questions are they going to be asking me? What do I have to answer? Do I need to have any specific information available, right? It's like also breaking that down, I think, can be so important. And a lot of college campuses do a good job at creating, like normalizing that process and having specific like student wellness centers to do that. But I think also for individuals who aren't going to school or aren't living on campus, right? How to make these things more accessible and easier to navigate, such as like I don't know, here's an idea, like, here's what to expect when you make the first call, or here's things to look for, or normalizing, hey, it's okay if you don't jive with your therapist. You can always ask for support with a referral and getting someone who you may feel more comfortable with. Um, let's see. Someone else said ACEs is also a huge factor, definitely. Um, And then thinking of substance use disorders as a sickness rather than a choice helps frame it in a more understanding way. Yeah. So normalizing this, asking for help, how are we framing what's going on? And another component of that too is, let me see, when we're talking about friends or people we're acquaintances with or in college, like maybe you're in class with, or is your roommate or a friend of your roommate, how do we normalize like trying to help support those people, right, without shaming, but also being able to um, provide some sort of support and open a door to kind of help say, you know what, there are these options, check into it if you're interested, right? So this next slide focuses on, also it's provided online by SAMHSA, part of the resource slide, but just different ways to start conversations with a friend. So if you notice someone in your life showing signs of mental health or substance use disorder, the first thing you should do is talk to them. So it's not an easy conversation, but it could be exactly the encouragement they need to seek help. By using a conversation starter, you can open the door to a judgment-free zone where they'll feel valued, supported, and listened to. So for this, I always think about it as, how would I want to be approached if it were me in this situation? Or how might I approach this as if it were a sibling or family member, right? That I'm trying to help kind of normalize that something's going on, and there are ways to talk about it to provide support. So here are some of the conversation starters that are included. So first one is, it seems like you're going through a difficult time. Is there anything I can do to help? The next one is, I want to be here for you. Do you want to talk about it? So kind of expressing your own intention of wanting to be there for that person and providing that choice. Do you want to talk about it, right? Because no one has to, but creating that space and even asking that, even if that day and time, let's say they're like, yeah, no, I don't want anything to do with this conversation, or I'm running to class, now is not the time. You've still created that space to lay that foundation of, okay, like, I'm a safe person that's willing to talk to you about it, but I'm not going to push my agenda on you. I'm just going to say, I'm here for you and I'm here to talk if that's something you're interested in. The next one is, I care about you and want to make sure you're okay. If you ever think about harming yourself, you know you can come to me, right? So again, it's decreasing that stigma of, just because we ask about harm or risky behaviors or suicidal ideation doesn't inherently lead to people engaging those behaviors. If anything, that's where we help to deconstruct that stigma and to provide that space to talk about it. Next is, I've been worried about you. I notice you've been, you can fill in the blank here, drinking more, using drugs, seem down lately. Can we talk about what's going on? So these are all ways to just start that conversation, right? We want to normalize talking about difficult things, because if we think about it, on the flip side, if we're going through a hard time and we're practicing maladaptive coping strategies just to get through, what we don't want in that situation is someone blaming us, judging us, or making us feel badly for what we're doing. We want someone who's going to be there and say, I see you. I see something's changed, but you know what? I'm here for you, or I'm here to support you if that's something you're interested in. I'm not going to push you. I'm not going to try to force you to talk to me about what's going on, but I can create this space so that we can work through it together so that you aren't alone in this. All right, so I'm going to, so we've talked a lot, well, I've talked a lot about different resources today and things that have been included in my slides. So I'm going to go ahead and just point out the resource page and kind of talk through what's available to them so that if you're interested in using any of these for work, personal life, or what have you, you kind of know what's there and available to you. And then we'll start to wrap up for the day and do some reflections about things that you all have learned, what you're going to take away from today. So skipping ahead to the resource page. I'm not able to pull this up for you all to look at, but starting off with the first one, the health promotion, student health and wellness. So this is the Michigan State University program, which created the Duck campaign. So they helped support the students who wanted to come up with this messaging. It also has education regarding substances and resources available to students. Very easy to access, clickable links, direct information, which is really nice and easy to go to and to get quickly. The next one, the National Social Norms Center at Michigan State University and Social Norms Message Creation Guide. So this one's really cool, actually. Let me see if I can. Okay, so it kind of has the do's and don'ts of messaging here. So I'll give an example of this because I think this could be really helpful if you're in a position to create that kind of like quick messaging, doing certain things in order to get that positive sort of response. So an example is like, let's see. So make the social norms message prominent and focal. It's easy to get so caught up in creating flashy and attractive designs that you forget that the whole purpose is to get your social norms message out to your target audience. While you certainly want to catch the attention of your audience using visual features, you want these features to supplement your social norms message rather than the other way around. There's also tidbits about making the message clean and simple, citing a credible source. There's also like the don't do. So avoid, let's see, avoid using prescriptive messages. So it's important when designing your campaign, you avoid telling people what to do. See, no one likes that. No one likes to be told what to do. Using phrases such as do and do not undermine the power of social norms messaging. Avoid including multiple messages, so to help make it more clear and concise. Think about those duck messages that we talked about earlier and that I showed you. Those all kind of coincide together. So if you're looking at a way to create your own sense of like social norms, that resource has nice guidelines that might be helpful there. The next resource I listed here was SAMHSA Young Adult Resources. So there they have education regarding discussing substance use with young adults, maybe something helpful. That's also where I got that phone call video and the image about untreated mental health and substance use disorders in young adults. So if you need those graphics for something, you can find them there. The substance misuse prevention for young adults is actually like a free manual you can download, which is really cool. So it includes research findings, best practices, and other useful resources. Might be helpful to peruse if you're interested in more information. And who doesn't like free stuff, just like the t-shirt, right? After that is the UC Berkeley Risk Management and Harm Reduction page. So this is the one where I got the party safe videos, the images about the do you, the intervention scale, the 5 steps to respond to an opioid overdose. They also have like a chart about blood alcohol level. So you can look at it and determine that. also emergency alcohol intervention, um, and just how to respond when you're dealing with a stimulant overdose. So again, really nice graphics that are easy to use. They also have, I mean, this is more specific to their campus, but ways to engage and inform campus leadership, harm reduction counseling and support. They have like recovery meetings and sober socials resources available there too. So plethora of like good information there. And then the last one here is talking with your college-bound young adult about alcohol. This one is also like a free manual to download, and it's more geared towards parents. So that applies to you, or you know someone or work with someone who may be able to utilize that resource, go ahead and check that out. All right, so starting to wrap up for today, please, please, please take a moment, pause, to think about when we talked about our why for the webinar. Let's kind of reflect back on that of like, what is the most important thing maybe you learned from today, or what's something you plan to implement because of participating in this webinar today, or also what's something you're already doing well, because we need to count those moments, right? We need to say, you know what, like I am doing a lot of great things and I'm proud of myself for this, or here's something that maybe wasn't presented that I also think is valuable. These are things that I would love to be able to read as people respond to it in the chat box. So go ahead and take a few moments to please look at these questions. If you want to answer them all, you can. If not, pick maybe one to respond to, so that I get a sense of what felt most helpful today with participating here, so that I can be a part of this reflection period with you all, and as a way to like wrap up and think about, okay, this is something I can take with me, or these resources are ones that I actually feel can be useful in my role or my job that I have. So as the responses come in, I'm going to go ahead and read some of them. So teaching substance use prevention for middle and high school. So I will 100% be incorporating the do's and don'ts resource for messaging. Oh, that's awesome. I'm glad that could provide a resource that would be helpful there. Yeah, and there's a lot that definitely would apply to that population as well. So someone else said using text messaging. Oh, awesome. Someone else said the MSU Duck campaign, wanting to create something similar for their program. That's awesome. I wonder what you'll come up with there, Rachel. I'd love to hear that, because I mean, I think that Michigan State used ducks because there's like a river on campus, and there's always a ton of ducks trying to, you know, get the food that you have as you're walking to class or whatever. So I'm guessing that's why they picked ducks. I think it's pretty endearing though, because I mean, you can't be mad at ducks giving out different facts, right? I mean, can't be mad at that, but I'd be very curious to hear what sort of thing you come up with. But there's tons of examples of the duck campaign online if you look that up. So hopefully that'll be helpful within your context of developing something for your program. Someone else said that you don't want to push abstinence at first and try moderation. Love the duck campaign. Awesome. Someone else said they were great resources. Their favorite was high mileage questions that are helpful, and also a judgment-free space. Awesome. Oh, Rachel's thinking manatees. I love that. I am very jealous that Florida has manatees, because I think they're they're beautiful creatures. So that's wonderful. Cynthia said text messaging and resources. Someone else said it has allowed me to have resources I can share with my younger clients to start creating a new culture about substance use. Thank you. Oh, you're very welcome. I'm glad that this seemed to be helpful for you. Someone else said the time is now for prevention. Absolutely, absolutely. Someone else said clear instructions for everyone, not just a designated driver, etc., app check-in. Yeah, I think like if nothing else, like in these past few years, we've really discovered how impactful technology can be and that there's still so many untapped resources. And when we're thinking about this emerging adult population and college students, how much technology can be a non-invasive way to provide information and resources for people, and that some of it is just we're not thinking about that, or maybe we kind of put our hands up sometimes like, well, they're going to do it anyway, why try? But the reason we try is it's such a formative year, sorry, like period of time, right, where they're discovering themselves, they're taking beliefs and what they've seen growing up and starting to challenge those and try to make sense of, are these values that I align with, or were these things I just saw my parents or caregivers do, right? And I think that's so important for us to feel empowered to say, you know, here are some options. Here's some information that you have, right? Here's some things maybe you hadn't thought about that now you can incorporate into that decision-making process, so you can make your informed choice and do it in a way that's safe and in a way where you have information that you might not have had previously. Um, so any other reflections or responses, things that felt important to you, or also things you're already doing well, especially in regards to technology, send them in the chat real quick, and then I will put up this slide here. So it's a thank you all for all that you do. Thanks to FATA, in particular, Rebecca and Eric, for always helping me out on these webinars and making sure things are the way they're supposed to be. And to the Florida Department of Children and Families and attendees as well. It's always humbling to be chosen to present for you all, and for me to vicariously live through you pretending like I'm in Florida right now, even though I'm not at all. I'm wearing a sweater and jeans. But I hope you found this time today to be helpful in reinforcing the importance of what you already do, and maybe even provided some strategies that may be useful to implement in your work. I think a lot of times we might feel unappreciated, or that our work isn't noticed, or that things aren't changing in the way that we really hoped that they would. But I think when we pause in these moments and like you see something on the screen that you connect with, or you say, oh, I'm already doing that, it feels really validating. And that's what today was intended to do, right? Is to come up with some strategies that may be useful for you, review what's already out there, and just know that like we're all in our positions, both personally, professionally, and we're in these positions that really can help create changes for people we care about and people we're surrounded by. And so when we have that chance or we have that moment, being able to do that or to have some resources, I think is so important. It's really powerful. So kudos to you all for taking time this morning to engage in the webinar. I super appreciate the responses and the polls. And Rebecca will take it from here on wrap up. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week. You all take care.
Thank you so much, Ashley. We have included Ashley's contact information so that you may contact her with any further questions. And Ashley, once again, thank you so much for this webinar. It was absolutely great. As usual, you get great remarks in the chat. I hope you can see them all. And thank you so much for providing us with all of this information. And everyone, if I can just conclude with a couple items of business before we end today's webinar. Please see the chat panel for a link to today's survey. Additionally, when I conclude today's webinar, your web browser will take you to an evaluation on FATA's website. If you want to receive CE credits or a statement of credit for this event, you must complete the evaluation. You will be prompted to register or sign in to complete the evaluation. You can register as a visitor at no cost. For CEs to be reported to CE broker for Florida license numbers, you must provide an accurate Florida Department of Health license prefix and number when you registered for this webinar. After you register or sign in, you will be directed onward to the evaluation. You must use the same email address you used when you registered for our webinar today and what you have set up in your FATA profile system, as this is the only way to connect your attendance with your profile. You will get a second opportunity to complete the evaluation through a follow-up email later today. The evaluation will close midnight Monday, November 7th. We do not email statements of credit. Instead, after we verify attendance and completion of the evaluation, a statement of credit will be generated as a journal entry within your profile 30 business days after the evaluation closes. Thank you for participating in today's webinar. Again, we'd also like to recognize and thank the Florida Department of Children and Families, Office of Substance Abuse and Mental Health for funding today's education. Have a great rest of your day. Goodbye, everyone. Please remember that Monday, November 7th, the evaluation will close.